Welcome back to a new episode of the Difference Engine podcast. This is your host, Caleb Oakes. I want to share this quote with you today. It's attributed to Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I'm teaching a masterclass in Columbus, Ohio tomorrow on personalities and how they play into communication, especially in business relationships. And I just had a conversation with someone recently about this dynamic. I use the DISC profile for personality behavior assessments. There are a lot of good ones out there. I'm most familiar with DISC. People use Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, various other ones. DISC is useful though because it's so simple and so easy to categorize, and it's used almost like a caricature. So it's not obviously, it doesn't encapsulate the nuances of humans as completely as some of the other ones, but it is very easy to make broad brushstrokes and figure things out relatively quickly, which is great for communication. So in the DISC profile, there's 2 personalities that are task-oriented and 2 that are people-oriented. And I see this a lot in businesses and I see this a lot in relationships. Typically in marriages or romantic relationships and in business, a task-oriented personality will seek out a people-oriented personality in a subconscious way to balance the other person out. It's very interesting to watch. What dynamic that causes, though, as you can imagine, when they say opposites attract, is 2 people will have 2 different sets of priorities in any given situation. You see this with people who are extremely nurturing and caring and thinking about other people all the time, whereas the other personality would be considering how to get the job done, what the bottom line is, what results are we doing, what's the goal. Neither of those are wrong. In fact, they're hardwired, and for the person to change that completely over the long term is going to stress them out a lot. It's also not to say that the person who is task-oriented doesn't care about people at all, and the person who is people-oriented doesn't care about getting things done. Again, these are broad brushstrokes, but I'm going to talk at length on this tomorrow for an hour and a half. So this is a lot of information to pack into a 6-minute podcast episode. The point I'm getting at with these 2 personalities in business is the situation with a boss who is a hardcore, goal-oriented, get stuff done type mentality, and a field operative in trades who is very people-oriented and cares a lot about self-image and the health of his relationships. And what dynamic can be presented here, or vice versa, is there's again a mismatch of priorities, and it comes out in the way that these 2 people portray themselves to each other and what they're trying to resolve. It leads to a lot of conflict when you're trying to resolve 2 different problems in the same conversation, and neither is on board with the other one's problem. That's an argument. It's literally the definition of an argument. 2 people trying to do 2 separate things together. What the solution to that is to understand how the person wants to be talked to. So in the case of a person who cares a lot about their image, the health of the relationship, criticizing the work they're doing, even indirectly, is going to be a criticism of themselves. They also care about voice tone quite a bit. They also care about patience quite a bit. That means no interrupting, and cooperation and support. So any help given to say, what do you need to get this job done correctly? What do you need so this doesn't happen again? How can I support so these mistakes are a one-time thing, or we iron this out in the next couple weeks? Those are all phrases that would connect with the person who is super people-oriented, relationship-oriented, without damaging, their emotional well-being. And there's times to have hard conversations, don't get me wrong. Having a certain type of personality does not give you the identity where you can never have someone talk in a direct way to you. It doesn't give you the ability to avoid conflict for your whole life. Sorry. The other side of that, though, is a very hard driver, task-oriented personality, someone who's very ambitious or cares about outcomes a lot as their main hard wiring. You can tell them to their face, this was not the way I want it done, and this is how I want it done, and they'll just go do it. They function a lot more black and white and are, definitely able to be offended, especially by having their work criticized, but it hits a different place in their psyche and their identity. It affects their emotions differently. And they care more about doing it and doing it effectively than they do about having the relationship kept correct. You can see this sometimes in coaching situations in sports where you go into a 30-second huddle and you have to be told what to do or what not to do anymore. That's more the mentality of someone of this personality. So when these two people come together, what often will happen is the ambitious hard driver personality, the task oriented one, is going to just is going to do all facts, very bullet pointed, quick, abrupt, uh, no real connection because how they perceive this is super important. How they perceive connection is different. One of them, task oriented, is looking for good job. That constitutes connection to them. Someone approved of their work, and that hits a good spot in them. The other person wants to be validated as a human outside of the work they did. They want to be seen and heard and acknowledged for how they feel. So if a high task oriented person does all black and white, bullet point, direct, you need to do better, it's going to devastate the person who is more patient, more relationship oriented, and takes it personally when they don't do the job correctly, because then they feel that they damaged the relationship. They're going to blame themselves and really not know how to fix it because they're not as results oriented. So hopefully that gives some insight. To tie it back to this quote, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you do not know the personalities of the people you work with or who work with you or who work for you, those undercurrents of your personality and especially your motivators, the things that you care about that they may or may not care about in the DISC assessment, there's 7. And one of them is economic. So when you try to motivate people with pizza parties and bonuses, that doesn't hit for everybody. So without knowing those things, motivation will be negligible. You have a 1 in 7 shot, and communication is 1 in 4, and you have to blindly feel your way through it. And then when there's turnover in your company, even if it's healthy long-term turnover, you have to learn a new person blindly again. So it's super important to understand these frameworks. If you have any questions on this, my handle is The Difference Engine on all platforms. Have a great week.